wahala, your breakthrough, idea. Welcome to the chat room.
This no be ordinary place. Now a solution they show face. LadyMary they lead the way. With guests we go blow your brain. Talk your matter make we solve them. No judgment, just love and wisdom. We they discuss, we they learn. Every episode you go feel the burn. Oh, the chat room. Now here we they find a way. Oh, the chat room.
Oh yes,
We go talk and clear, no delay. Oh, it's interactive, educative, informative, and unapologetic. Oh, the chat room. We unstoppable, no be lie. You, hey, the chat room. Hey, now here we can find a way. The chat room. We go talk and clear, no delay. It's interactive, educative, informative, and unapologetic. Oh, the chat room. We unstoppable, no be lie. Oh, the chat room. Now here we define the way. Oh, the chat room. Oh yes, we go talk and clear, no delay. It's interactive, educative, informative, and unapologetic. Oh, the chat room. We unstoppable, no be lie. You.
Afternoon, good morning to you all, depending on what time it may be at your end. My name is LadyMary Boadu, and I am your host for the chat room, a platform dedicated to resolving daily life's issue. And so for this month, we are looking at autism and the different aspects there is to it. We had an amazing time last week, and I trust that you would have, or we all will have another good time today. Nanaya, please go ahead and introduce yourself. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. This is Nanaya Sarpong, co-host of the chat room. It's good to have you all here. Another blessed and great Sunday evening, morning, afternoon, wherever it is that you are, based on wherever you are. I am a financial professional, a mother, and a wife. And as always, I'm excited to be here so we can have this conversation and educate ourselves on some of the things that is going on in our society and getting to know about different aspects and different behaviors. So it's good to be here today. And thank you, Inoni, for accepting the call and joining us this afternoon. I'll have you go ahead and introduce yourself. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background. I hope my connection is still good.
Yeah, she's muted. She's muted.
Yeah. On my end, it seems like she's frozen. Is it me?
She's not. She's just muted. Because I seen her blank, so I don't know.
Inoni, can you hear?
Okay, Nanaya, take a quick second break and then check on her and let's see, okay?
Okay.
Yo, your life, your wahala, your breakthrough, idea. Welcome to the chat room.
This no be ordinary place. Now a solution they show face. Lady Mary they lead the way. With guess where go blow your brain. Talk your matter make we solve 'em. No judgment, just love and wisdom. We dey discuss, we dey learn. Every episode you go feel the burn. Oh, the chat room. Now here we define the way. Oh, the chat room.
Oh yes.
We go talk and clear, no delay. No delay. Oh, it's interactive, educative, informative, and unapologetic. Oh, the chat room. We unstoppable, no be lie. You, hey, the chat room. Hey, now here we define the way. We the chat room. We go talk and clear, no delay, no delay. It's interactive, educative, informative, and unapologetic. Oh, the chat room. We unstoppable, no be lie. Oh, the chat room. Yeah. Now here we define the way. Oh, the chat room. Oh yes. We go talk and clear, no delay. No delay. It's interactive, educative, informative, and unapologetic. Oh, the chat room. We unstoppable, no be lie. You.
All right. Can you hear us? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Good. All right. Please go ahead and introduce yourself for us. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Inoni Woodberry. I am a licensed professional counselor. I am also licensed as a marriage and family therapist. So I work with a wide range of people. I tend to primarily like working with folks when they are in crisis. So I deal with a lot of grief and things like that and mental health illnesses. I have had quite a bit of a range of experience working with adults, children, people diagnosed with all different types of disabilities, autism, other developmental disabilities, intellectual disability, to some degree, some neurodivergent diagnoses, and a lot of individuals who may have some complex cases. I've been in the mental health field since 2007. So since I did not go to school for math, I don't know how long that's been, but that's been quite a bit of a time. I'm originally from, I'm from Richmond, Virginia, and got my undergrad in psychology from University of Richmond. I do have a master's in psychology from Virginia State University, as well as a marriage and family therapist counseling master's from Liberty University. So I've had quite a bit of a dabble, a little bit of everything.
Awesome. That's a great worth of experience. Thank you for being here. And thank you for accepting the call when we invited you to join in this month's discussion on autism and how we can contribute as a society, basically just to make everybody's life a little bit better. That's what the chat room is about. We talk about different topics just to better ourselves, just to get better understanding of just social issues, relationships, general life issues. So tell us basically your experience dealing with people with autism, people on the spectrum? Like, what has been your experience in general?
So I will share a little bit about my work experience as well as personal experience. My work experience, I have supervised group homes for individuals with developmental disabilities. Autism is a developmental disability, so legally, developmental disabilities are anything that's identified that changes your ability to function by the age of 22. So autism is kind of one of those things. I've managed group homes. I have primarily had work experience with working with individuals to connect to services. So helping individuals figure out how to best live life the way that they want to do it, with as much support as they need to, so that they don't necessarily have to be institutionalized. I've also worked with families and children, identify, recognizing the signs that may be explaining um, needs to happen, and working with families in the instance of in-home
Sorry,
services.
Imani, do you
So,
have another device on? There's like an echo.
mm, there is a echo, meaning,
Yeah, it's like a little feedback. We're getting a little
is it
feedback.
still an echo? Is there still an
No,
echo?
now it's kind of. Is it on my end, lady? Is it on my end, or are you hearing the same thing?
I could hear her, but I think it's better now.
Okay.
It's
Better. Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. Technology is great till we want it great. So I've had some experience in working with families, one recognizing that maybe there may be some that's needed and how to best access that. Are you still getting echo?
If you have a
It's
cell phone
now
close
it's like
to
a
you,
background noise.
no, if she has a cell phone closer to her, you can probably turn your cell phone off and see if that works. So sometimes it happens to me when my cell phone is on. If you
So
want
just
to,
turn the phone off.
I'll
Like turn
probably
it off completely,
do not disturb. No, just to see if the feedback will stop. Then at least we know what it is.
or just move it away from the
Okay.
laptop, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, better? Is that better?
Actually, it is better. Yeah, it
Okay.
is.
Good with the phone. Okay. So, so I guess, do you want me to go back through kind of how I've worked? Well, I've talked about like my work experience, personal experience. I do have relatives that have been diagnosed with autism. Um, my mom does have a degree in counseling and works primarily in special education. So a lot of times in our personal lives, working with individuals with autism may more so being a support to families, just kind of through life, and encouraging um, positive, positive interactions with people. Um, so that would be whether it's at church, kind of working, just kind of being nicer to children, or kind of working as a family member to support someone in practicing, developing a plan that's kind of healthy for that person to be able to communicate in the world. Um, autism, that autism disorder is a spectrum, so there is a wide range of symptoms that could be potentially addressed. Just because someone experiences it in one way doesn't necessarily mean in another. Somebody else would experience it in another way. So a lot of my experience has been kind of coming up with creative ways to communicate with the world, with other people, so that that folks feel supported and are understood.
Okay, so with your both, it can be both your personal and your professional experience. So based on that experience, And I know that it's probably going to be different because, just based on, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
what level on the spectrum that the, whoever you are dealing with is on. So do you see in most cases that people with autism, are they mainly or are the majority nonverbal? Because I've seen where it seemed that, a lot of people with autism, they may have like limited speech or no speech. Are you seeing that a lot? Like, what is the
So again, it's a spectrum. So in order to be diagnosed with autism, it's really the disorder is really affecting how you communicate. So it's primarily not only social communication, but being unable to kind of change with the interact with the environment around you. So there is not necessarily a number per se to say that most people who are diagnosed with autism may not be able to use words at all to communicate. So, or that they're able to understand others that are communicating with them all the same way. It's a spectrum. So depending on the severity of how your interactions are affected, kind of depends on what kind of supports you may use or need to be able to have a quality of life that you enjoy. And so a lot of what that looks like in real life is, some people may seem socially awkward, or students who may have a difficulty transitioning between classes, maybe in middle school, because another part um, of autism may be sensory, some sensory concerns or sensory issues. Maybe things like your five touch senses that may just seem to be overwhelming. So imagine if all the time that ringing noise that you hear when you feedback is happening all the time, even if it's the phone just ringing, because that seems too loud. That's sensory overload. So it could be a range of that. It also could be that someone just was able to develop the skill to express how they feel with words, so they do it other ways. And I guess that's what most folks consider say as nonverbal. So it's a spectrum. There's really no number to say. So services that are available to people who are diagnosed with autism range, and that's why I like being able to be diagnosed, recognize stuff early on is important, because depending on the severity of the impact in your life depends on what the support looks like and how you get to it.
Okay. So, sorry, do you have a window open? Because I'm kind of hearing like background.
There may be children upstairs, but that's probably as quiet as I can get it. This is a kind of a large, the ceiling is kind of, so you may hear that type of echo, but other than that, I kind of
It
have.
sounds like someone is driving. It's not
No,
like
I'm not
a car is
Yeah, it
passing
was
by.
like a driving background.
Yeah.
I'm standing still.
No,
Mm-mm.
no, not you.
It's
It
not
just
you.
like I heard like a car drive by type of
Oh,
Sound.
well, the street is out of the window behind me, so that might have happened. So I apologize.
Nancy, go ahead. Nancy, are you frozen?
Is my connection okay? Is my connection okay?
Yeah, go ahead. Okay, since Nancy is frozen, I'm just assuming that you can hear me, so I hope you can hear me. And then I'll ask you my
Yeah.
question. I think there's a
Okay.
debate on the parts of Nancy as well. So I've seen cases where children would be recommended to see a specialist, right? Whether it's a speech or what's the other one called? The ones that kind of deal with the feeding. There's a name for it.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so at what point should a mother be able to say, okay, maybe my child has a problem, or at what point would the child need these various therapy? You know, because sometimes you have parents where they're like, oh, I didn't know that my son or my child have this, but the
Okay.
specialists are usually able to tell, better or faster. So at what point can a mother that is listening to us, maybe she may not be so sure, at what point should they start seeking for help?
So it's always good to know a little bit about developmental milestones. So that could be a range of different things, different points. At any point you're ever concerned, as a mom, about your child's development or what we think should be happening, it's always good to say something. It's better to kind of rule out something and be preemptive instead of kind of letting it wait and linger. Because like I said before, the earlier you can have intervention, the better. So just kind of thinking about autism diagnosis or symptoms, you're thinking about social interactions and communication, what that looks like for an infant, right? Because infants don't talk at all. And then all of a sudden just talk. You hit the regular developmental milestones. So when you're going to the doctor and they're saying they should be babbling or maybe saying one or two words by a certain age, the biggest thing is that it doesn't necessarily seem like your child may be interested in engaging the world around them. So if they are not seemingly interested in, when you call their name, that they recognize that there is a name, that there is a sound, someone talking, and they're interested. So when you see interested, looking at you, or maybe they use their facial expression. Even if they're trying to say something back and it doesn't recognize, it's just really that interaction. Language comes at different ages, and although those developmental milestones that doctors talk about are kind of the average, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's an absolute. Really, the biggest thing is if your child is seeming like they're engaged. The other thing is children, because roughly around age 2 is when kids really start to engage. I can hear my 2-year-old upstairs now banging on something. She's engaging in something, and just taking advantage of mommy's paying attention. But they're really starting to engage in things like they're developing a lot of different skills, whether it's putting on clothes, going to the bathroom, potty training. Those are all those type of skills. And sometimes for individuals diagnosed with autism, they have kind of reached those milestones, and then all of a sudden it just seems one day it's off. That is a point to be concerned. So when it's really important to be able to go to doctors, to those doctor's appointments on a regular basis, and voice all concerns, even if they seem like they're little, even if it seems like it's really nothing wrong, just anything little that is different, just to double check, because at a certain point, it could be worth ruling out that autism may be the diagnosis versus maybe only having issues with speech, because it may be that they're not communicating, or having an interest in communicating. It very well may be related to some of those medical issues that folks catch with lactation or a tongue tie. So it's best when anytime you think, hey, this doesn't seem normal, or there seems to be a trend, or there seems to be a reduction or a regression, it's important to ask the doctor. And the doctor, your pediatrician, is who is a good starting point in doing screenings and being able to get full assessments to kind of determine whether or not autism is maybe autism supports are needed. And don't accept no. You do not have to accept no. If you are concerned about a diagnosis and the doctor cannot rule out that there is a need there is something else causing the symptom or the behavior that you have concern about, you don't have to accept no. A good tactic is, are you going to document in the record that you were refusing to do this, and they kind of change their mind. But you don't necessarily have to accept no. Like, you recognize that there is a problem. It is better to rule it out and be over concerned versus under concerned. And that's usually the biggest problem. People kind of recognize that there may be something wrong, but people say, oh no, that's fine, they're just being a kid, or oh no, we see this all the time. This is kind of pacify your concern. But that would be like the biggest thing, making sure you go to doctor appointments regularly, and really looking to see whether or not your child is engaging, because that's kind of the biggest thing. If you don't see an increase in engagement, or it seems to be really, really difficult for that person. So a big thing for individuals at 2-year-old is potty training. So if your 2-year-old is having some real difficulty, and I mean not just having accidents, but not always having accidents, always seeming to have emotional distraught, and it's extreme, not just crying because they're embarrassed, but complete meltdowns that you're not able to console within maybe a couple of minutes or so. So if you have a child who's crying uncontrollably, emotionally distraught for 30 minutes on an everyday basis, that would be something to suggest to the doctor, hey, this is what's happening, because that could potentially be autism, that could be potentially something else, but it would help to rule out.
So let me ask this, and I hope I heard you correctly. Did you say that there's a child not being able to communicate early does not necessarily mean the child has autism, right?
So there are a lot of different, and this goes for like not just autism, a lot of mental diagnoses. There are a lot of symptoms or behaviors that may happen in a person, and the cause of it may be something different. It may not necessarily be autism. It could be something different. It could be things that are overlapping. So, for example, if a child is always is not seeming interested in communicating, but they don't necessarily have like the rigid routines that individuals with autism typically have, because there's a couple of things. It's not just the social interaction or just the speech, the communication. It's also having those routines that seem, or being interested in things that seem unusual, and it's almost kind of like an obsession. So that is the only thing that matters to them, in addition to having some sensory issues. If all of those things aren't piling up, it may not be that the speech issue is related to autism. It could be another medical diagnosis that explains that. But it's good to at least ask about it, so that if it's ruled out, that you find out what else can be causing it. The thing about autism is not just one thing, it's kind of the build-up. So if it's just maybe, communication and speech seems off. So for example, if a child has a lisp, they would be still wanting to engage with their surroundings. They'll be trying to talk, just have difficulty pronouncing the phonetics. So that wouldn't necessarily mean that child has autism. They may have a speech impediment. So they would have speech therapy, just like someone with autism who would have that in addition to being really rigid, having difficulties with time change, or being or having really large sensory issues. So example, if they can't wear anything with, like, think about the tags on the back of your shirt, if that is completely overloading. So if they're not having all of those things happen at once, it may not necessarily be autism. It could be something else. But even if you see one of those things, it doesn't hurt to ask the doctor about it and at least spark the conversation, and regularly spark the conversation, because the doctor may not necessarily remember that last time that this was an issue as things pile on.
Okay. So in your experience, do you deal a lot with children? What's the age group that you deal with when it comes to autism?
So with autism, with individuals who have been diagnosed with autism, most of my experience has been with adults. And those have been individuals who are kind of well into their late 20s, 30s, and up. Do have some experience, like I said, with assisting individuals navigating maybe the rule out process, or identifying some issues. I primarily work with adults at this point. I think I worked with children for maybe about 5 years. And like I said, I do have some family members who are diagnosed with autism. So for their lifetime, working in that capacity alongside with kind of just being more so empathetic and understanding as a family member. But primarily my work has been with adults.
Okay. So with the young adult, what type of services are available?
So there are a lot of different types of services available. So as I said before, autism is a spectrum, and depending on how it impacts you and how you relate to the world depends on the services. So for children, there are several laws that require public schools to provide services. And so when we say services, we making sure that they learn and helping them develop into some independent skills, so that when they get to be young adults, so that they are able to live as independently as possible. So one of those laws is called IDEA. And pretty much what that says is the public education system has to educate your child up until the age of 21, and provide them with the skills to so that they can live independently as possible, and do so in the least restricted setting. So that means that we are not trying to people in hospitals anymore and keep that is not necessarily, that's not the goal, or the system set up. And people often look at it and think that that's kind of what our system is. We're getting away from that, because we found that if you put things in place, people can live functional lives, and they can live happy lives with other people. So IDEA wants you to go ahead, wants the system to go ahead and start practicing that now. So with IDEA, schools are required to provide the support needed so that children can learn around other peers who may not be diagnosed with a disability, which includes autism, as much as possible. It doesn't mean learning in the classroom can be for some period of time, like on their own or with other individuals with similar diagnoses, and then others not. And maybe they have, and so that maybe look like something like art, research, or some other activities, and maybe some math. They really have that one-on-one attention. They also have, because that is a wide range, to start from 0 to 5, pretty much when they enter K, right? All the way up until 21, that is a wide range. Typically, public school education stops at the age of 18, 19 if their birthdays are late, when they graduate high school. So that means that the different age and children can also have access to not just the actual education piece, academic education piece, but also employment. Because there are skills that you and I kind of learn through socialization to be able to gain employment. Simple things with what to ask, but not to ask, social engagement with your supervisor versus your peers, how to practice customer service, some of those types of skills, in addition to maybe some skills, maybe fine motor skills, developing a trade or things like that. Individuals can get support with employment, developing those skills, so that when they are out of school and do graduate from school, can do so and have kind of the same footing as some of their other.
Imani, sorry, I can't even hear you. The audio is really, really bad. I can't even hear you at all. Let's figure that out, because I can't even, all I hear is like static and whistling. So I don't know if it's on my end. I don't want us to miss all the good information that you're giving us, but I can't hear.
Did this start, or has this been going the whole time?
It actually started back up. It was clear before, but then it started back up. It was getting really bad.
Okay.
It's somehow.
I don't know kind of how else to deal with that. How's that?
Now it's good.
Now it's good.
So,
okay. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know.
And you probably didn't do anything to it, right? I don't know. It's probably just the network systems.
Yeah, because I'm like, I'm hearing stuff and I'm like, she's giving out good information, but I can't hear.
Yeah. I don't know why it starts happening as explaining though.
Okay.
I
don't know.
Stop.
That's always the best question, right? I'll go back. I'll kind of go into kind of the employment piece, which is really important because some of those social skills sometimes keep people from being able to get jobs. We talk about all the time, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. Mm-hmm. And so that's the social interactions, those social skills that individuals with autism have to maybe learn a little bit differently. So in the state of Virginia, one of those things, we have a whole department, the Department of Aging and Education, that assists in helping individuals with disabilities develop some of those job skills. They may take a little bit longer to learn some of the job skills some of the kids pick up quickly, in addition to kind of harping on those social dynamics. So that could look like a lot of different things. They could have job coach. And so that's somebody that works with them to kind of identify, okay, these are the things that you want to do. These are the skills that you are good at. These are the skills that you may need improvement to be able to get to this goal. How do we work with that? And that may look like just kind of biotechnology. So if you have sensory issues, I'll share one individual I work with. Loud noises were not really effective for them. They could be having a whole lot of noises. So in a work environment, maybe at Walmart, where there could be a lot of different noises, that could be overwhelming. So they would not really be able to focus on their job, but would be more so focused on sounds and not be able to get the job. So something that we could do is buy headphones, counseling headphones, adaptive equipment. So they may be able to have resources to do that. to kind of help, or if someone, and that's for any type of disability, including autism. And so they, or it could be, getting someone used to the routine. So one thing about individuals diagnosed with autism is the transition between one activity versus the other, and having a routine. So when you get a new job, you have to learn the routine. It's hard to learn the routine if it's kind of overwhelming. So what a job coach would do is kind of figure out with that person ways to kind of help and deal with the transitions from one activity to that other, and developing a routine at work that works well for that person as well as that job. And maybe advocate for that person. So if there are some accommodations that need to be needed, so let's say there's a routine or a task that really isn't needed, but that person doesn't need to have to be involved with, but can get their job accomplished. Maybe kind of navigating what that is. Maybe taking lunch a little bit earlier than everybody else, because being in the break room with everybody else is overwhelming. So there's that someone could have. Someone could also, if they want to build skills, kind of similarly like going to a technical center, specifically geared to those individuals with disabilities. It's called Woodrow Wilson Rehabilitation, and so they would go. So folks go there for a period of about roughly 9 months. They stay there, so it's kind of like almost like a mini college experience. You go and you stay in the dorm, and you get to know, you get to focus on some support that may be needed in being able to work in real life, and then you come back and are able to use those skills and support that was created in real life situations. Those are some of the things that services that are able to access into. But then once they kind of have graduated, so whether that's from the age of 21, or if they decide to graduate earlier, and they are no longer in school, there are usually services that are available with potentially Medicaid waiver service, and potentially Medicaid, but it's such that
Okay.
There's a lot of money that is set aside to provide.
Let me see. Okay, it's back again. It's back again, and we can't hear. Lady, can you? I don't know. Just try and can you check anything behind the scenes? Because I don't know. You're muted.
Yeah.
Inoni, can you do us a favor? Can you turn off your video and let's see something real quick? Just turn off your video.
Okay.
Can you
All
speak?
Right. I'm here.
Okay.
So
Is that an issue? Video?
I don't know, but
okay. Well, it's okay. It's okay. You guys have seen my lovely face long.
She's still.
Does it sound better this way?
She sounds better.
You do sound better, but for some reason I feel like
it's
still there.
Do you have and I'm sorry to ask this, do you have maybe like the next 20 minutes to where, because Nana, I'm saying this because there are times where my cell phone is on and I'm sitting, my cell phone is right next to the laptop, and so I get this feedback, when there are different systems connected in one place, it does that. So I was gonna ask if she can off her cell phone for a minute just for us to see, because it could be.
If it will work. Okay.
Yes, see if
if that's what it is.
Yes, please. And you can turn on your camera. I'm sorry. I just wanted to see.
Okay. Hold on.
This is very well needed information, and I'm sorry that you all can hear. There's still an echo, but I keep getting messages that they can't hear.
Oh, how does that?
It's better. It's better, but because I feel like when you say one word, then it's better. But then as you start talking and you're going into it, then it starts messing up again.
Okay, hold on.
Or maybe it could be the connection. So maybe repositioning yourself. If you turn off your cell phone, if you and reposition yourself, and let's see.
I am about as close to the router as I can be.
Okay.
I'm scared to turn off the. How's that? Scared to turn off the Wi-Fi.
Okay.
How does that sound?
And I'm sure it's probably the connection because your video is a little bit distorted.
Okay, so
Like
I'll turn off the camera.
Okay.
Okay, and that's probably, does that seem a little bit better?
Wait and see.
Yeah, it seems
Okay,
better.
that's fine. Okay.
And I'm so
Okay,
sorry.
we can do it.
I'm sorry we have to go that route, but if that's the only way people can hear us, then
Perfectly fine. I like being behind the scenes better anyway.
She sounds better than us. She sounds really better.
You do sound better. So you were
Okay.
telling us about the employment aspect, and that's I want people to hear that. So if we can go over that again, how you help them get ready, or how you work with different organization companies to get special accommodation or just get accommodation as needed. So if you can go over that again.
So the biggest thing, and some of this I didn't say the first time, but I think it's important to know, with having the diagnosis. So recognizing early on, one helps to get services in place so that you kind of know what supports are needed as a person goes through life. And then two, to have access to those services. So when we think about quality of life and think about the lives that we want for ourselves, you think about different types of areas of life. You think about employment because that affects your financial stability, social connections and interactions, both at work and outside of work, family, and things of that nature. And so somebody who may be diagnosed with autism may need some extra supports in all of those areas. There are services for all of those type of areas. So when you think about individuals who are in school, there are services that can help with all those types of areas of life at every level. So you would think so there are some laws that require public schools to provide support to the IEP project, so individualized education. An IEP is about teaching me differently. An IEP says that you teach me differently so that I can learn the same content as somebody. So within that process, students can learn some of the basic academic skills that they need to succeed, as well as get support in learning some of those skills that we use at work, especially with socializing, because we've been talking about socializing.
It's back. We can't hear you.
I don't know what else to do. Oh no, I'm sorry, guys. What about now?
It was better, and then you kind of went away. Like it seems like you went a little bit farther away from your microphone. So
how about
it
now?
kept going like low and low and low.
How about now?
Yeah, it's good now. So
Okay.
maybe you need to just stay closer to the microphone. It's good.
Okay, I'll do that. So there are services for every piece of your life to be able to support a quality of life, so that people can live a good quality of life and have the supports that they need with their family members, especially often take roles on early in supporting people with the things that they need when they have a disability. However, that having that all the time changes the dynamic of your family. None of us have our mom. Well, we don't want our moms necessarily in our bank accounts, right? Managing our finances, or having to drive us to work all the time. And on a regular basis, like that's the only way we can get to work. Not being able to only have fun time, you have it with you and your mom. So being able to access those services also help families able to have family relationships and not have it entangled into a whole bunch of other things. So making sure that if the diagnosis is needed, one, being able to get the diagnosis, and then two, asking for what you want, asking for the things that are needed through the IEP process. There are laws that make sure that schools, public schools, are giving folks those things that they need. And I'm talking about it really broad because, again, autism disorder is a spectrum. There are a lot of different things that someone could or could not need, but it doesn't necessarily make it impossible. It depends on the person and kind of what they need to be able to engage the world around them. And that's really the goal. So there's that while they're in school. And when they transition out of school, so once someone graduates, there are still services. Sometimes people think there's nothing else left, that's it. But no, there are still services that people can access. It's called a waiver. And really what that is, there is a pot of money set aside for services that address those specific needs in areas that I talked about earlier. So employment, living situations, family, friend support, like social network working, being able to access those things, simple as transportation, being able to communicate. So someone who doesn't use words to communicate or have a lot of words to be able to communicate, being able to the equipment that is needed, the technology that is needed to be able to access those services. So there's a pot of money set aside for folks. Now, granted, the wait list for that is extremely long, and there is a process to that. But if you have one of those waiver slots, you have access to services that can support someone. So one, they can live the life that they want to live. And ultimately, that's a life of dignity and autonomy. And then two, so that families can feel the relief of, one, I can just be family. I can just be the best friend. I don't have to do all the other things. And if I'm not able to, there's somebody else that can support that person, and it's not just me. So so there are services that may directly impact that person, but it also impacts their social network and their social connections with other people. So the way to kind of figure out what that looks like, there are a lot of associations and organizations. The biggest, some of the bigger ones are Autism Speak, as well as the Virginia Autism Society, and the ARC is another one that operates in the area in Virginia that provides kind of that type of information so that people can advocate for the needs that they want, in addition to providing actually some of those services. But in order to, there's also something called a community service board. They manage those waivers. So being able to get on the wait list, being able to access those services, getting connected to those services, things like that, you would have to go through your local community service. So again, this is only a system in Virginia. Medicaid is, of course, a nationwide program, but each state manages their Medicaid programs, which would include that waiver slot differently. So it may be different on how that looks in another state, but in the state of Virginia, accessing your local community service board would get you some of those, get you access to getting to the process of getting to the waivers.
Someone has a quick question for you. Thank you for that information. Two questions. I think one is, I don't know if I should say it's funny, but I guess I will want to hear it, especially for my African parents that are on here. She's saying that I'm glad she says she has children, but my question is, what does she think of a parent that chooses to discipline their child, even though their child is highly autistic?
Well, discipline, I think that's a loaded question. So this is what I will do. Because I suspect the person who is asking that is saying discipline in terms of physical punishment. But discipline, you need discipline in life, right? In order to function. Because we have to be disciplined to be able to get up and get to work on time. Discipline does not necessarily mean that we are doing physical punishment. We don't want to get into those gray areas of abuse, because corporal punishment could be considered that, and then you have cultural implications that go back and forth. But that's not something, I don't necessarily condone corporal punishment per se, but you do need discipline. So discipline in the sense of there is a cause and effect to what my actions are. Everyone has to learn that, even individuals with disability. So there is a phrase about that sometimes we use, and that's kind of the dignity of risk with dignity. And that means that you have to learn, you are able to take the risk and kind of learn the consequences. Now, no, we don't want you to get hurt. So as parents, we always put parameters around things, but it's more so about how do we teach you the discipline or the skill set that you need, and what type of things do we need to support you? So I'll give an example. Every child learns their routine differently. I'm an active auntie. So I'm the fun auntie. I used to be the rich auntie until I had my own toddler. So now I'm just the fun one. But all of those children learn differently the rules of the house, and they do it better depending on certain supports they need. I have one of my nieces that if she is hungry, we have maybe about a 10-minute window before she is unable to engage the world around her. We know that. So as a support, we kind of have a routine to make sure that she eats properly. She eats on a regular schedule. So if that, for some reason, that routine is out of whack, we may not necessarily have the consequences in place. So whether it's no TV or you're losing a privilege or things like, if the children are at that age where they understand the consequences of losing a privilege, we may be a little bit more lenient about that. But that's a big thing that I think unfortunately happens. People mistake providing supports and adjusting the environment with just kind of not teaching people, teaching individuals anything. They still have to learn that there are consequences to my actions. And if I want to get something, I need to do certain things. And that may include the discipline and stuff, but it doesn't necessarily, it's about kind of how we implement that. So it may look differently. Did I answer the question?
Yes, you did. You did. And then I think this is a follow-up question from someone. It says that, how true is it that, I'm sorry, I'm trying to go to what's up on my laptop. Okay, it says that I hear her response to the previous question. However, can she also clarify that is there any truth to children who has autism, their cases worsening just because of spanking?
So we want to go back to what it means to have autism, right? It is about communication, and so when there's two parts to pieces to communication: expressive, so how we share information, whether that's talking, hand gestures. Y'all can't see me now, but I'm somebody who talks with my hands, as well as receptive, how you understand the information coming with you. And so with individuals with autism specifically, how you're receiving that information may look different. So if you are spanking children and they may not receive that as, I didn't do what I was supposed to do, I didn't listen and do, so now I'm getting a spanking. They may receive that as, I'm getting hit. They may not see that as punishment. They receive that as they have a harder time understanding that communication. So does it even become effective? So it's not necessarily, and then what you're receiving from that information from the world around them may impact differently how they respond to you. So how do you express that information? So it may ultimately look like, quote unquote, the situation is getting worse, but it really is, they are seeing it as danger, and so they're defending themselves. Because now every time I get spanked, I give you a 2-piece back. And so now we're not teaching the consequences, right? And we have set up the parameters, the idea that anytime someone hits me, that I hit them back, and there is no distinguish between, I'm a child and I'm being disciplined.
That was good. Thank you so much for that. Amy had a question. Ania, do you see that? I can read it.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. She said she's asking, how can the parents of an adult child with autism access these services?
So with an adult child, those different services, cost, right?
18 and above.
So 18 and above. So if they are still in school, they can access services through that IEP process. Because remember I said for IDEA, that federal law of IDEA, children can stay in school up to 21 if they have a developmental disability. So that's 21. If they are not in school, those Medicaid waiver services, that pot of money that I was talking about, would be the way to access services. And you would get the process started by going to your local CSD, Community Service Board, or Behavioral Health Authority. So in the state of Virginia, and remember this is Virginia's system, every state is different. But in the state of Virginia, each locality, so each city and county, is assigned a community service board or behavioral health authority. Those folks manage that waiver system. They're charged with making sure that the services work for people the way that they need them to and want to and whatnot. So you would have to access through them through that. And and each CSB operates a little bit differently. But in general, there's something called a wait list. And what they do is you go to the CSB, you say, I need these services because this, and this. I have the diagnosis. That's the biggest thing. Being able to have the documented diagnosis. And so they will do an assessment, and based on the functioning of that person, And that diagnosis, they can put them on a wait list to be reviewed, case to be reviewed. And so the process, and even in that, is just making sure to keep them updated with information as things happen, because things change.
What is that? What is that?
People's situations change. So if someone is having a harder time with understanding the world around them, and they are becoming more physically aggressive, that's a change for them to know. So it may mean that they need services sooner, and can help update them. And so every so often, the state is able to give out waiver slots. So the money is allocated for that person, and they are able to say people who need it the most, right? So knowing that up-to-date information, they say, well, these are the people who need it the most. These are the slots that we have. And they kind of give them out based on the highest need. There's a number that's associated with things, an assessment that's done that creates numbers. So it's not just necessarily arbitrarily. Being able to make sure that PSB has that person on the waiver list, and they have all the information that they need and ask for. Sometimes it seems like you're bugging the person, or they're bugging you. It's just so that everybody can know the most up-to-date information. So when those slots for those type of services are available, come open, you have the best chance to be able to get what you need when you need it. You don't miss out on an opportunity. There are some services that sometimes are helpful, even if it's not that waiver slot. So for maybe an individual who doesn't maybe necessarily need as much support. So maybe most of the issues are related to being able to navigate social interactions. So they can't get sarcasm. That's a really big one. So not being able to read between the lines and seeing the cues, because the thing, you have to be able to not be rigid in your thought process to be able to understand sarcasm. And if you have that, so maybe that's the biggest thing. There are some associations that kind of help encourage like social interactions to make it a little bit easier. So like the ART, Autism Speaks, Virginia Autism Society, they often will post different or host different engagement activities so that individuals have opportunities to practice without the embarrassment of geez, I messed up, or having such a big risk that it impacts their life a whole lot. I saw an article recently. There is a restaurant who I believe it's Karen's Bakery, that specifically hires individuals with a developmental disability, so intellectual disability as well as autism, so that they have the opportunity to work and have gainful employment. And so there are often activities like that. So I think the biggest way to access those things, because that wait list is so long for those paid services, is getting connected to some of those social activist type of organizations like the Virginia Autism Society, and looking at Autism Speaks. They all have different chapters for various states and regions that are able to help access to some of those things that kind of can just boost somebody's confidence and feel.
You mind to come closer to the mic again? Come a little closer to the mic.
How about now?
Better.
All right. So there you go. So that's kind of where that is. So not only getting on those waiver wait lists, but looking at some of those social activist nonprofit organizations like the ART, Virginia Autism Society, and things like that. You can find more information about these different ways to access the Medicaid waivers, and maybe some of those other type of organizations at the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Services website. And I believe that ddhds.org. And that website does have some information that kind of helps people if
Thank you so much for that. Go ahead.
I
Go
wonder
ahead.
if every state has a DBHDS. That's where she said, if you're in Virginia, that's where you can find, you can get access to the information on what type of services
Mm-hmm.
and plus, I guess, funding, right?
For,
It's
for
services and
Virginia.
funding information
For Virginia.
Yes, for
Um,
Virginia. So
for the
if you
state.
don't
Okay, so I
live
wonder if
in Virginia,
other states have.
other states have different systems. So every
systems.
state doesn't have a CSV system. So if you're not necessarily in the state of Virginia, the way that I know that I would tell someone to start is to kind of looking at some of those national organizations,
Yep.
the Autism Society, Autism Speak, and a lot of times they will have links that
The
help
resource.
you get access. Yeah, have access to state specific things or regionally specific things. Um, if you live in a state where anything is related to getting mental health services, if that's there is some type of organization that does that, it can at least point you in the right direction, because oftentimes mental health services and developmental disability services are connected, and autism is a part of that.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. So, wow, our time is 5:10 p.m. But we have a last question on here, and she's saying that for the benefit of those who may not understand what IEP is, can she go just a bit into detail for us?
So IEP stands for Individualized Education Program or Education Plan. And essentially what it is a plan to teach someone the same type of skills, the same concepts in a different way, so that they can be on par or meet at the same level as their peers who may not have that disability. So that is an ongoing process. The easiest way to think about it is it's saying that if you teach me this way, I can learn the same information. So with an IEP, there is a disability that is identified or an issue that is identified. And so for autism, having that diagnosis through the doctor, first starting out with the screening through your pediatrician, and then being able to have a psychological completed, would have that diagnosis. And in that psychological, it would probably have some recommendations about areas where the person is struggling and what type of things may help that person. And so based off of that, and based off of observation, there is a team that comes together. And that team includes the parent. Most schools in Virginia have like an IEP what they call an IEP coordinator. Everybody's title may look different, but same concept, right? And the teacher. And maybe if you want another advocate that understands the laws and navigating differently, and you guys sit down and talk about the things that are seeming to be problems, preventing the child from learning this concept, and what you put in place to make sure that that person is able to learn. That is essentially the IEP program. You review it every year. You can update it. It's considered what we call a living document. So just because we've had this meeting and 6 months down the road, we say, oh, this isn't working, we should probably change our strategy. Doesn't mean you have to wait for the year for the review. You can meet within 6 months, because the whole point of it is to make sure that the child is able to learn, that we have a plan that works to make sure that they can learn and stay on par with the rest of their class, that they're not left behind. there are some general, like one thing I will say is with the IEP process, oftentimes because there are a lot of rules and regulations that the schools have to follow, sometimes parents feel powerless in that concept, in that process. You have the power. You have all of the power. You do not have to. You may not necessarily know all the different strategies that are proven to work or not work or be there 24/7. But if it is not proving results, you do not have to sign off on that. That's the biggest thing. Parents do not have to necessarily sign off on a plan if it is not working. We're not supposed to leave the table until we figure out something that is working. And when I say leave the table, meaning that we are not supposed to say, well, fine, this plan is good. This is what we're sticking with. This is what we're going with until everybody, till the family is satisfied. That parent is satisfied with, yes, this is my child is getting what they need to be able to meet the goals that they need. So sometimes teachers, teams butt heads and with the parent in that. And so there's the role of a special education advocate who really specializes in being able to navigate all of the different rules and regulations and may have some experience with working with different programs and implementing different plans for folks. Now, most schools have special education advocates that they work with. I usually suggest maybe considering not only individuals that they work with, but individuals who are independently funded by not just the school system. But that is the process of an individual education plan. Is the whole point is to teach the child the way that they can best learn, so that they can learn it the same way.
Let me ask this. I just wanted to add to what she's saying. Truly, when it comes to the school system, I believe that they are really strict and it's super tight. Honestly, there's so many different like things you literally have to go through to be sure that your child does qualify when it comes to the school portion. My son, very smart. He delayed in talking for a bit, right? And of course, as a mom, I'm paranoid and trying to get him all the help needed. And I tried with the school, and this is leading to a question that I want to ask. Do you always need the primary doctor, the pediatrician, to sign off before the child can get the help they need? That's my question. But I'm adding to what you're saying to say that even when I requested for him to have all the different type of specialists because he delayed in speech, but they came back several times with, after all the assessment they did, I mean, he literally passed everything overboard, over the number that was required, to determine whether he needed this, and they did not give it to him. But I say this to say that there are parents who would relax, like you said, when they push back on it. But if you truly know that your child needed, after that, even the doctor have said that the child need help and there's a pushback, just as she's saying, please don't relent. Don't just take it lightly. Continue to seek the help you need, because help is available to everybody. But sometimes too, if you're like me and you're just paranoid, thinking, okay, why he didn't talk early and blah, 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 and you want to just get him there just to get him there, forgetting him this in their sake is not going to work. They're going to push back on that because they're really strict. I mean, at least for the school that my kids are in.
So the assessment process is going to a degree, they want the people that dedicate their time, a good chunk of their life, right, the specialists, to weigh in. The easiest route, yes, is the pediatrician. It depends on the situation. To answer your question directly, it depends on the situation needing the pediatrician to sign off on it absolutely all the time. I can't say that's a yes or no, but I would say that is the easiest, that is the route with the least resistance, because that's the doctor that's kind of considered the highest level of specialist there is. And if they're saying, hey, we see a problem, there needs to be an assessment in place. There needs to be something to happen. There's nobody else to kind of refute that. The biggest thing is don't accept no. It's okay not to accept no. I joke all the time. I live my life thinking I am a princess. No is not really in my vocabulary, and I'm offended when people tell me. So I really do not accept no for a lot of things. If I want something, if I know that something is not working, it's not paranoia. And that's the thing that sometimes we as parents may start to believe that we're being paranoid, but it's not paranoid. There's something not working. What it is, we are unsure of. And that is why you have specialists or professionals, to be able to give us all the information possible so that we can make an informed decision. It's not paranoid. It's knowing that there's something is not working. And you're not being a bother by asking the questions and having a follow-up question. A lot of people will know, if you tell me no, I'm going to have a lot of follow-up questions to make it make sense in my head that this is why this is no, because otherwise I don't compute no well. I don't understand that word. I don't care what language you tell me, and no, I don't understand. So it's okay to keep asking the question, even if you have to ask it a different way and say, I don't necessarily agree. It is okay to do that. That's advocacy. That is what we have to do, particularly for children and for people who have a disability or who are struggling to communicate. They don't have a way to say that this is what's bothering me, and this is how it's affecting me. We have to be okay with being okay in that comfortable space of not accepting no. It's not paranoia. It's not being difficult. It is trying to understand what you are telling me. And if it doesn't make sense, I need you to sit here and make it make sense. So those rules and policies are ways to be able to do that. That are required, if you think of it in that sense. Rules and policies are the guidelines that the schools have to follow to make it make sense. And so the assessments that are supposed to happen are going to not only include like the specialist, like I said, the pediatrician is a good place to start, but there's going to be a psychological. So there may be that's going to be somebody who is experienced in giving assessments. So that's interviews, collecting information from records, maybe giving out some tests to just kind of see what's going on. Because with autism, there is a spectrum of symptoms and behaviors that we want to address. So they're gonna be assessing in a lot of different ways. And being able to collect information in a lot of ways in order to give a good recommendation. So it's a lot of it for parents is not accepting no, being okay with asking a lot of questions. You are not a mosquito, you are not a bee, you are not bothering anybody. That's literally what they get paid for, to answer your questions so that your child can learn the way that they are supposed to.
Thank you so much. Nanaya, well, remember in the back we were saying that there's not enough information to last 1 hour. It's 1:22, but our mother is asking, can she please explain the difference between a child having an emotional issue or imbalance versus autism?
So emotional issue or imbalance is usually kind of a colloquial phrase that people use to describe a set of behaviors or incident that's going on. It's not necessarily an actual diagnosis, right? So it could be that maybe what we are seeing is someone who is having a hard time, having a difficult time, and instead of being able to communicate that it's too loud, I'm too tired, I'm overloaded, I'm overstimulated, they just fall out and cry or have a hard time. That could come from having some difficulties related to autism spectrum. That could come from having another diagnosis. Remember, I don't know if anybody could hear me when I said earlier that sometimes behaviors and symptoms may be similar, but they may not necessarily mean that you absolutely have autism. So autism, again, there's more than just the communication. It's having probably some sensory issues or seemingly to be engaged in hypersensitivities to things that may seem unusual. It's rigidosity. It is a combination of symptoms, not just the emotional imbalance. And so although there may be seemingly some emotional dysregulation, those are descriptive words for what we are observing, not necessarily an actual diagnosis.
Thank you so much. And I'm sorry that the network was messing up, but great information poured out. Great information, as always.
Everybody takes care.
No, I think we got better, and I'm sorry we had to take you off camera. But if you are in a safe place, you can put your camera in if you want to. But we are actually done for the night. Thank you so much for joining. We appreciate you. So everyone that tuned in, Amy, thank you for tuning in. We have the Virginia folks tuning in today. Yvonne, thank you for tuning in. Clara, you are welcome. Thank you to everyone who commented, to everyone who shared. Stephen, Lorenzo, thank you for tuning in. Kwabna Sarpong, you are welcome. Nanaya, do you have anything else to say before we end?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Imani, for coming on. I think that, the part that we were able to hear
was good.
Was good. And that's why I wanted us to be able, because it was really good information that if you are in a place where you're dealing with, individuals with autism, especially as parents, it's good to understand the resources that you have and how to access them, right? And that, as you said, that there's resources out there. There are people who can help. There are people like you that can, help them get jobs and get accommodations put together for them to be able to live, if not independently. They will get assistance where not everything is falling on the parents or the caretakers, right? To know that you have these IEPs that they can put in place to help them learn on their own level. Instead of just being coupled with everybody.
Not accept no. Be a princess. Don't accept no.
Yes, don't accept no. Be a princess. I'm gonna be on your level. Not accepting no.
Be a princess.
In my princess era. And some of the comments, Amy, I wanted to say, read out that comment. She said that to be a constant presence at these EIP meetings, ask questions, give suggestions, advocate. Do not take no, because they are being paid to do this assessment and this job. So it is your right. It is your citizens' right to be given this benefit. You're a taxpayer. That's your benefit.
It doesn't matter. If you are in a public school education, you have the right to a public education. These are the basics. This is what we have decided as a society that we are going to do, and that we are going to teach everyone at least these basics. And that we're recognizing that some folks may need more help than others, and that we, as a society, it's no fault of their own. So we're not going to punish them for that. So we're going to give them support. So you don't have to accept no. And also, it's important to know when you need help explaining what you're seeing. That's why special education advocates can be really important. They're going to work with you to get an idea of what's going on, so that they can kind of mediate. And sometimes that mediation can get a little spicy. That's okay. But It doesn't necessarily always have to be a negative interaction. It may simply be that I don't know how to get them to understand what we're experiencing and what is needing what we want. So it's okay to recognize that and have other people advocate for you on your behalf. The biggest thing is, of course, don't tell me no. I'm a princess. Why would you tell me no? How dare you? That's the mentality.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We appreciate you.
You know,
Well,
so even if you're not in the United States, I wanted to add that even if you're not in the United States, you know, go online, whichever country you're in, and research what type of assistance is given, because there are so many parents taking on the burden alone, not knowing that they have all these resources available to them. You know, so just research wherever you are. If you're not in Virginia, not in the United States, wherever you are, just research and see what assistance you can get. But thank you so much, Imani. This was great. Thank you.
that's good.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in once again. Next week, we are coming back. Not We are still on that autism topic, so please do well to tune in and let's learn together. All right, guys. Thank you so much, and nice to meet you. You have a good one, Nanaya. We'll talk to me, Cheryl.
All right. Bye.
Yo, yo, yo. Now your matter with the talk. Your life, your wahala, your breakthrough, idea. Welcome to the chat room.
This no be ordinary place. Now a solution they show face. LadyMary they lead the way. With guests we go blow your brain. Talk your matter make we solve 'em.